Olivia Thompson adjusted her reading glasses as she focused on the illustration in front of her. With skillful fingers stained with blue and red ink, she made a few notes in the margin of the drawing. Her dark hair, usually tied up in a messy bun, partially fell over her concentrated face. The home office was quiet, except for the soft sound of the pencil against the paper and the occasional sigh of fatigue. At 39, Olivia had built a solid reputation as a children's book editor. Her keen eye for detail and sensitivity to stories that touched the hearts of children made her one of the most respected professionals in the field. On the bookshelf behind her desk, dozens of books published under her supervision formed a rainbow of colourful covers. When the clock struck almost midnight, she finally pushed the chair back and rubbed her tired eyes. Edward would already be asleep. Lately, this had become common. They operated on different schedules, like planets in distinct orbits that rarely aligned. In the kitchen, Olivia found a plate covered with plastic wrap and a note with her husband's meticulously organised handwriting. "Didn't want to interrupt your work. Dinner on the plate." Olivia felt a pang of sadness. 17 years of marriage reduced to notes in the kitchen and rushed conversations in the mornings. Edward Thompson, at 41, maintained the same precision as when she first met him, the methodical accountant who organised life into spreadsheets and schedules. As she heated the dinner in the microwave, Olivia reflected on the changes of the past year. Edward's weekend trips had started gradually, first once a month, then every 2 weeks, and now practically every week he left with a small suitcase, returning 2 days later, exhausted and silent. "Client visits," he explained vaguely. "Many overdue taxes to resolve." In the beginning, Olivia didn't question it. Her own job was going through an intense period, with deadlines and special projects. But in the last 3 months, other signs had appeared. Phone calls that Edward took in private, quickly leaving the room, messages on his phone that he immediately deleted, and an increasingly evident emotional distancing. In the dark room, Olivia found Edward's side of the bed empty. A note on the bedside table informed her that he had needed to leave early for another of his mysterious trips. The space between them seemed to widen each day, like pages being torn from a book that once told a unique and coherent story. Edward's office on the lower floor was a territory that Olivia rarely visited. Organised and immaculate, it reflected the methodical personality of her husband, so different from her own creative space, filled with colours and apparent chaos. That morning, driven by a mixture of concern and suspicion, Olivia decided to enter. The desk drawers were closed but not locked. In the third one she opened, she found what her heart feared: a folder with hotel reservations, train tickets to a small rural town 2 hours away, and receipts for gifts, including an expensive cashmere shawl that had certainly not been given to her. Olivia sat in Edward's chair, feeling the world spin around her. A framed photograph on the table showed the two of them on their honeymoon, young, smiling, full of promises for the future. The contrast with the present was too painful to bear. During the following week, Olivia lived in a state of torpor. She worked mechanically, reviewed illustrations, replied to emails, but her mind was fixed on a single devastating certainty: her marriage was ending. Edward, always so honest and transparent, had become a stranger with secrets. One night, while Edward was packing his small suitcase for yet another trip, Olivia decided she would confront him when he returned. She needed to hear the truth, no matter how painful it might be. That night, she remained awake for hours, mentally rehearsing what she would say, preparing herself for the end of nearly 2 decades together. The phone rang on Saturday afternoon, waking Olivia from a restless sleep on the couch. The unknown number made her heart race. "Mrs. Thompson?" asked a female voice. "I'm calling from the regional hospital. Your husband, Edward Thompson, had a minor accident." The next few hours passed like a confusing dream. Olivia quickly packed a bag, got in the car, and drove the 2 hours to the small rural town, her heart pounding in her chest. The GPS guided her through increasingly smaller rural roads until she reached a community that seemed straight out of an old postcard, Small wooden houses, a church with a white steeple, and green mountains in the background. The hospital was a modest 2-story building. When Olivia identified herself at the reception, the young attendant smiled kindly. "Edward is fine, Ma'am. Just a few scratches from when he slipped while doing maintenance on Martha's house roof. He's in room 103, but—" The girl hesitated. "Actually, Martha asked to be notified as soon as you arrived. She's in the cafeteria." Confused, Olivia walked to the hospital's cafeteria. Who could this Martha be? An elderly lady with white hair pulled back into a perfect bun waved as soon as she saw her. She approached with a slightly unsure gait, supported by a cane, but with a smile that lit up her entire wrinkled face. "You must be Olivia." The lady hugged her, as if they were old friends. "We finally meet. I'm Martha Wilson. Edward talks so much about you. Come, let's go see our stubborn patient." Stunned, Olivia followed Martha through the hospital corridors. The elderly woman talked non-stop as if she were continuing a long-standing conversation. "I told him the roof was slippery, but he insisted on climbing up to clean the gutter. Men, always thinking they're indestructible, just like my dear James. And Carl, too." When they reached the room, Edward was sitting on the bed with a bandage on his forehead and his right arm in a sling. His face paled at the sight of Olivia at the door. "Olivia, you didn't have to come." His voice trembled slightly. Martha looked from one to the other, sensing the tension in the air. With the wisdom of someone who had lived through many stories, she smiled gently. "I think you two need to talk. I'll get coffee for all of us." When the door closed, a heavy silence filled the room. Olivia remained near the door, unable to move closer. "Who is she, Edward?" she finally asked, her voice calmer than she expected. Edward ran his good hand over his tired face. "Martha was the mother of the half-brother I never knew." The answer was so unexpected that Olivia took a moment to process it. "Half-brother?" Over the next 20 minutes, Edward revealed a story he had never shared. 6 months ago, while organising documents after his father's passing, he found old letters and a legal child support agreement dated before his birth. His father had had a son from a relationship prior to marrying Edward's mother, Carl Wilson, who had lived his whole life in that small rural town, never knowing Edward's family. "Carl died 5 years ago," Edward explained, his voice choked with emotion. "Cancer. His mother Martha was left alone. She has heart problems, advanced arthritis. When I found her, she was about to lose her house because she could no longer take care of everything." Olivia slowly approached the bed, feeling her previous certainties dissolve. "Why didn't you tell me?" Edward looked at his own hands. "At first, I could barely process that my father had kept a son secret for decades. I felt anger, confusion. Then I met Martha, and she showed me photos of Carl growing up. He looked so much like me, Liv. He was my brother, and I never had the chance to meet him." Tears now ran freely down Edward's face, something Olivia had rarely witnessed in all their years of marriage. "And then, you were so busy with that award-winning book series. It seemed wrong to burden you with more family drama. I thought I could help Martha on the weekends without complicating your life." Martha returned with 3 cups of coffee and a compassionate smile. The next few hours passed in a conversation that filled in the gaps of the story. Martha showed photos of Carl from her wallet, a man with a gentle smile who truly had the same eyes as Edward. She told stories about her only son, a literature teacher at the local school, and a writer in his spare time. "He always wanted to publish his short stories," Martha commented with a distant look, "especially the children's book he was writing." Edward was discharged from the hospital in the late afternoon. Martha insisted that the couple stay at her house. Martha's house was an old 2-story building with a large garden. Inside, time seemed to have stopped in the 80s, well-preserved classic furniture, photographs in wooden frames, and a cosy, homey atmosphere. "This was Carl's room," Martha explained, opening the door to a room on the upper floor. I haven't changed much since he left. The room was simple and tidy. A desk under the window was neatly organized, with books on shelves above. On the wall, diplomas and certificates displayed Carl's academic journey. Edward has been coming almost every weekend, Martha confided to Olivia, while showing her the family album. Fixing things around the house, taking me to the doctor, even helping me organize the bills. An angel, just like his brother. That night, when they were finally alone in the guest room, Edward sat on the edge of the bed with a somber expression. I'm sorry for not telling you before, Liv. At first it was something so personal and painful. Then it became a responsibility I took on almost without realizing. Olivia held his hand gently. I spent weeks thinking I was losing you when in reality you were just finding an unknown part of your family. There's one more thing I want to show you, Edward said, carefully standing up because of his injured arm. From the closet, he took out a varnished wooden box with the initials CW carved on the lid. I found this in Martha's attic a few weeks ago. I was trying to understand it before sharing it with you. Inside the box, neatly organized, were dozens of handwritten pages, some typed, others written by hand with elegant handwriting. The title at the top of the first page read, The Brothers of the Split Oak, by Carl Wilson. It's a children's book he never finished, Edward explained, as Olivia began to read, her professional gaze immediately recognizing the exceptional quality of the writing. It's about two brothers separated in childhood when lightning splits in half the oak where they played. Each grows up on a different side of a forest, unaware of the other's existence, but both take care of the halves of the tree. Olivia read page after page, her editorial heart recognizing a genuine talent in Carl's words. The story was allegorical, profound, with that rare kind of narrative that speaks to both children and adults. It's extraordinary, she whispered, turning the yellowed pages. But it's incomplete. He never got around to writing the ending, Edward confirmed. Martha said he worked on it for years, but he always hesitated to finish or show it to publishers. I think in some way this story was about how he felt, this unknown connection with a brother he never knew. Olivia looked up from the manuscript, an idea forming in her mind. Edward, this deserves to be published, and I know exactly how to finish it, not by altering what Carl wrote, but by complementing his vision. The following week, after they returned home with Martha as a temporary guest, just until I recover from this cold, she insisted, Olivia presented Edward with a sketch of how they could complete Carl's manuscript, preserving his original voice but adding the ending that the story needed. The brothers finally meet as adults, Olivia explained, showing her drafts. Each took care of half the tree for years, and when they finally reunite, they discover that the roots were never separated, keeping them connected even when they were unaware of each other's existence. Edward hugged her tightly, unable to express in words what that gesture meant. The project quickly turned into a shared mission. While Edward worked from home to care for Martha, Olivia used her connections at the publishing company to bring the manuscript to life. Martha became an integral part of the process, sharing stories about Carl, helping to capture his unique voice, and offering details that only a mother would know. When the first drafts of the illustrations arrived, depicting the two brothers who subtly resembled Carl and Edward, Martha cried at seeing her son's legacy come to life. What had begun as a temporary stay turned into a new arrangement. With Martha's health gradually improving under the couple's care, they converted the downstairs office into a comfortable room for her. I can't accept this, Martha protested when she realized the plan. You both have your own lives. You are already a part of it, Olivia responded sincerely, surprising herself with how true those words were. As the weeks passed, the house that once seemed eerily silent gained new life. Martha with her old stories and quiet wisdom, Edward rediscovered as the compassionate man Olivia had always known, and Olivia finding new purpose in the connection between her career and this deeply personal family story. 6 months later, while the three of them sat in the backyard sharing afternoon tea, the mail arrived with a special package. Inside it was the first printed copy of The Brothers of the Broken Oak by Carl Wilson, with additional credits to Edward and Olivia Thompson. The dedication on the first page, written by Olivia and approved with tears by Edward and Martha, read, "For the bonds that never break, even when invisible. For Carl, whose words connected hearts that never knew each other. And for Martha, who kept alive the memory that united a family." That evening, after Martha retired, Olivia and Edward sat on the porch watching the stars. Edward held his wife's hand, their fingers intertwined like the roots of that imaginary oak from the story. "I thought I was losing you," Olivia confessed softly. "Interpreting your silence as distance was my greatest mistake." Edward kissed her hand tenderly. "And I thought I was protecting you when I should have been sharing, even the burdens and painful discoveries." The book between them, with its cover depicting two boys on opposite sides of a majestic tree, glowed under the porch light. What had begun as a secret that almost drove them apart had transformed into the project that rekindled their connection. "Some chapters end," Olivia murmured, looking at the lit windows of the house where a new family setup was blossoming, "so that even richer stories can begin." If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.